Hello, my name's Cary Pilet, and I'm going to be talking about substances. The topic for this particular session is going to be habits and patterns and how we may move into an addiction. So I want to start with this idea of a pattern. In my mind, a pattern is routine. We all have these, because if we didn't have these, God, life would be so tough. You know, we have just routines for how we get up in the morning. We have routines for how we get to work. We have routines for how we get through our day. We have a bedtime routine. If we have our children with us on weekends, we kind of have a routine for how that goes. Patterns are the way we get through life. They're different for all of us. Okay, what works for you doesn't necessarily work for me, and I might look at you and say, boy, how you do that. Okay, patterns, though, keep us through things. When we have a pattern in place, we don't tend to get too upset if we have to kind of change the order up, as long as overall we're able to get through our routine. So for example, if we get up in the morning and your pattern is, my pattern is, I set my alarm really 30 minutes before I need to get up, because I like to wake up slow. I like to hit the snooze. So I'm going to hit it at least twice. Okay? And if I'm really on it the night before, I set the coffee up, because I like to get up, pad to the kitchen, get my cup of coffee. Helps me open my eyes and start moving. And then I go get in the shower and do all the other things to get myself ready. Okay? So it doesn't really bother me too much if I hit my snooze twice and I didn't set up the coffee. So I just go out and I make the coffee, because I got enough time, right? It doesn't bother me too much if I get in the shower and I forgot my toothbrush, because I'll just brush my teeth when I get out the shower, right? We aren't even aware of our patterns most of the time. We become aware of them when something in our life changes. And so if you're living in Tampa, they're always doing construction. I'm not aware of any street right now that doesn't have some construction going on. There's a cone everywhere. So that's when we kind of got to pay attention, right? So we go, and there's a whole bunch of traffic backed up here, and so maybe I'll take this way, or maybe I'll go that way. And those are the times when we kind of have to pay attention to what we're doing. Otherwise, we get into our car and we back out and drive to work, and we don't tend to pay attention because it all went okay. Only when there's a difference, you know, do we become more aware of it. Only if something's working. Like, let's suppose our shift changed. I work days now. I really like days. I'm not a night person. But I know some people that they swing. So they'll work days 1 month, and then they'll work nights 1 month. And your whole pattern of life has to change when you do things like that. And so then, again, we become aware of, oh, I got to do this. And it just becomes much more cumbersome for us. We got to, think about it again. Okay? So when a pattern is working for us, we don't think about it. But what about when it's not working? I got to take this new pill that my doctor gave me because they're telling me that my blood pressure is a little bit too high. Well, then I got to put that in, because I don't take any pills. I don't even take vitamins. Okay, and now I have this thing I'm supposed to remember to take. And so far, for the past 5 days, I've forgotten it 3 times. Well, that's not going to work. They told me I need it for my blood pressure. I could die, right? And so I've got to figure out how to put that into my life. And so now I've got to change my pattern. How am I going to remember to do this thing I now have to do that isn't part of what I always do? And so there again, I have to actively put it into place and get used to doing it. How long does it take to change a pattern, do you suppose? A week?
A while, no.
They say 21 days. 21 attempts is what it takes to change a pattern. So if you've got to take that little pill, in 3 weeks of remembering to take it every day, you're going to take it every day with an occasional miss. But the first couple of weeks can be pretty rough when we go to change something. So when we want to change a pattern, we have to hang in there, because yes, we can do it. I have to get used to doing it and remember to do it, and then it's going to become my normal, and then I don't have to think about it anymore. That's the beauty of a pattern. Okay, a habit kind of looks the same, but I'll tell you, a habit is an activity that we put inside of our life. Okay, so when I think about things like habits, I think of both good and bad habits. Some people are in the habit of exercising, which most of us would agree is a good thing. I go to the gym. I go 3 times a week. I spend an hour. I do this, 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 and this. So there's a little pattern built into my little workout thing there, isn't there? And I do it at this time. But my habit is I go to the gym and I work out. I'm in the habit of smoking. I smoke cigarettes. Most of us would say that's a habit, isn't it? Okay, and I will tell you, as a medical provider, that's a bad habit. Not a good one. Okay? I'm in the habit of drinking coffee in the morning. I told you I get up have my first cup of coffee because I like it first thing. I'm in the habit of having coffee first thing in the morning. Some of us are in the habit of going out on Friday nights after work and having a couple of drinks with friends, right? Habit. Repetitive. We do it recurrently. But it isn't necessarily part of our routine all the time. It's different than a routine because when we get into the habit of doing something, we miss it when we don't do it. And so people that are in the habit of exercising will go, God, I didn't make it to the gym today. I got to be sure I get there tomorrow. And if they miss a whole week, oh my God, can you believe this? They're going on about they've missed doing this thing. That really is how I kind of differentiate a habit somebody has from their routine in life, because they are bothered when they can't perform this habit they have. Happens with my cigarette smokers. My God, they really miss that. They're in the habit of smoking and they have a hard time not smoking. So habits are a little bit harder to break. We're much more aware when we're not able to do our habit because we usually enjoy it. We don't tend to get into habits for things that we don't enjoy, right? I'm into the habit of biting my fingernails until they bleed. No, I don't have people that do that. We don't tend to do habits that are uncomfortable for us. They tend to be things that we enjoy. But you hear how we introduce them into our life, okay? The third part is an addiction. And an addiction is like one step above a habit. Most of us would say addictions are not good things, and I'll tell you I generally agree with that. Because when we talk about addiction stuff, we're talking about overdoing something. You know, you can be an exercise addict. You can be alcoholic. That's overuser of alcohol, right? You can be you can be a nicotine addict. Smoking. Can you be a caffeine addict? Yes. Can you be a gambleaholic? Yeah. Can you be a gambleaholic? Yes. Can you be a sex addict? Yes. Do any of these things sound nice? We put that aholic on the end and nothing sounds nice, does it? No. So, you know, what's the difference between that habit where I do it and it's incorporated inside the patterns of how I live and I miss it, and an addiction? An addiction is something that is not good for us. An addiction is something that we no longer have control over if we're really an addict, if we're really addicted to something. An addiction is something that is affecting our life in a negative way. I mean, you don't have to have withdrawal. Is it affecting your life in a negative way? And if the answer is yes, I have some questions I want you to think about, because you may be heading down the wrong path. Okay? You may be heading down the wrong path. When we talk about addiction, we get this dependence going on. That's a little bit different than that habit, because I psychologically, mentally, I believe I need this thing. I believe I have to have a drink. I believe I have to have a cigarette. I believe I have to exercise at the gym for 4 hours a day. I believe I have to hit the casino twice a week because I really could win. Okay? And how is this detrimental to my life? Well, if I'm over at the casino 2 days a week losing money, you know, can I really afford to do that? If I'm buying 2 cases of beer a week, can I really afford to do that? And how does that affect my ability to perform my job the next day? There are negative impacts to these things, and I believe I need it. So I'm not motivated to stop. I'm not maybe recognizing that it is detrimental to my life, okay? We also become physically addicted to most of this stuff when we talk about drugs, which is what we're here about. And so we become physically addicted to alcohol. Okay? I feel jittery and shaky if I haven't had a drink by 5 o'clock. Okay? I feel anxious if I haven't had, you know, a hit of a joint in 4 hours. I feel anxious when, you know, I take Xanax and, you know, I didn't take one this morning because I'm maybe trying to stop, and oh my God, here it comes. I'm having a hard time. Okay? I have a terrible, terrible headache because I didn't have any coffee at home this morning, so I haven't had my caffeine hit. And it's 10 o'clock. That's withdrawal for caffeine. I'm really irritable because I ran out of cigarettes. I haven't had a chance to get to the store to buy even a pack, and oh my God, I got to get some because I'm going to kill somebody. I'm only going on lunch. These are the physical signs that we don't have our drug in our body. The body says, hello, you promised me. You promised me you would put a pack of cigarettes into my lungs every day, and we're 4 behind. So where are the cigarettes? Okay, it doesn't think that way, but it reacts that way. It reacts that way. Okay? So you with me the difference between them? Because a lot of us get habits and addictions kind of mixed up. With an addiction, there's a negative consequence, and we have this psychological and or physical dependence that's associated with whatever it is that's going on. Okay? Gambleaholics have a psychological dependence, right? It's the rush. It's the joy of. Roller coaster-aholics are in it for the rush. I have adrenaline junkies that I've met, and they just do all kind, jumping out of. I consider jumping out of airplanes for the adrenaline rush. Riding fast bikes for the in traffic in Tampa. That's for the adrenaline rush, because I don't think most of them are suicidal. Okay, but wow. Okay, so those are the three things that we want to talk about. The next piece I want to look at is how do we get there. Okay, because most people that I meet, I will tell you, I don't think I've ever met anybody who said, I'm really actively trying to have a drug problem. I just haven't decided which one yet. I don't meet people like that. I haven't, he didn't look at me and say, Cary, I really, really intended to be an alcoholic. I've been working on it since I was 9. And so far I'm up to a 6-pack. I'm really kind of going slow. No, nobody does that. Nobody has that as a dream. Oh, I want to be a junkie. I want to be an alcoholic. I want to have a mess of a life. No, none of us would say that was our dream for ourselves. Okay? But we meet people that are there, don't we? And they got to get there some way. It usually is because of their lack of awareness. They're not paying attention, is what I'll tell you. That's what I'll tell you. So how does that work? Well, we get exposed to drugs, and a lot of us have been exposed to drugs, and I'm going to include alcohol in this fairly early. When I start talking about drugs, the line for me is alcohol. It's a legal drug, it's socially acceptable, but it causes a buzz. It affects how the brain works. Chemically, it gets into the brain, okay? So I start there when I talk about drugs in a drug program, followed by marijuana, which is the #1 illegally, still illegal, but getting there, drug in the United States. Those are the 2 drugs we use most here. Okay? And so I have people that get exposed because they have maybe friends that are using, because it's acceptable in the family where they're raised. We have 2/3 of our population use alcohol, which means that most of us have been around it as we were growing up. The earlier we get exposed to that alcohol buzz, increases our risk. Increases. It doesn't mean it's going to cause it. It increases our risk to find a drug that we enjoy that gives us that buzz. So a 9-year-old that has alcohol around and is getting a buzz once a week is at high risk to be an addict, aren't they? To be an alcoholic, and we're talking about a 9-year-old. Holy cow. So how do we get there? We have to have a good first drug exposure, and like I say, most of the time, that's alcohol or marijuana. Okay, now what we think about it affects what's going to happen too. What we think about it affects what's going to happen too. If you don't have any kind of a buzz from what you tried, you're probably not real hip to trying it again. It didn't do anything for me. Why would I do that? Some of us wouldn't. If I have a negative experience, I had a beer and it made me sick to my stomach and all I do is remember throwing up. Am I going to want to do that again? Again, I don't meet too many people that say, I really enjoy being sick. No. And so I'm less likely to try that again. Why? Because in my memory I have this terrible experience that's associated with what I did, what I tried. Okay? So if we have a negative experience, it's going to kind of put us off from using at least that again. And the first 2 drugs that we're going to try are those 2. So if we've had negative experiences, I try a little pot and I cough up my left lung. I'm probably not going to do that again either. Why? Because I didn't enjoy coughing for 15 minutes. It was terrible. Okay? However, if I'm uncertain, I didn't really feel anything, and peer pressure comes into play here too, doesn't it? Because if I have friends that are using and I'm trying to fit in, think about being in high school, trying to fit in, and my friends are drinking or my friends are smoking, what am I going to probably do? I'm going to probably try it at least again. Even if I don't enjoy it, I may be going to continue it because I want to fit in with my friends. Peer pressure, when we're young, goes a long way to getting us into the habit of using, even if we didn't care for it so much. The third thing that can happen is that we really enjoy it. Wow, man, I took a hit on that blunt, and oh my gosh, that was just the best. I took that Xanax and oh wow, that was really cool. I want to do that again. A positive experience increases the likelihood that we are going to do that again, given the opportunity. Okay? Now let's think about this. If I'm experimenting, which is kind of what that is, isn't it? I don't have any habits. I don't have a lot of exposure. I'm bumping into it with my friends or with my family. Am I buying my own stuff yet? No, I'm not. I'm using other people's stuff. Okay, so somehow I have to get from using other people's stuff to having to buy my own stuff, don't I? Okay, which, is a process. I have to be around people that are using. I have to have them finally look at me and say, you have to get your own stuff. I'm not going to keep supplying your pot. You have to get your own. Let me hook you up where you can get some. Okay, and alcohol is not a problem unless you're under 21. But you can walk in, anywhere. Any convenience store has it. The gas stations have some kind of alcohol. You can go to the ABC Liquor. They got everything you might possibly want. And if they don't, they'll order it for you there, right? Yeah, so alcohol is not hard to come by. Pot, a little harder to come by. Not a lot harder, just a little bit, because they don't sell it in the tobacco shop, right? Pain pills, you can probably go to your doctor and feign pain, and he'll give you a prescription once in family practice. Maybe your grandma has some extras. People go and get prescriptions and they're selling them on the street. This is not hard to come by either, but it takes a little more effort if you're going to use that kind of stuff, doesn't it? Okay, so the main two are alcohol and marijuana. If we have a good experience, we're more likely to use it. We're more likely to use it again. We're more likely to get into the habit of using it, which is what? Now I begin to sit it into my life. Okay? I'm going to use this example of smoking. Cigarettes are becoming less in vogue here in the United States, but you'll get me. Because these are available everywhere too, right? Right here.
What if you enjoy it?
That is that rewarding one. And you're going to be the hardest. If you enjoy smoking, you're going to be the hardest person to get off of these. Because I like it. I just like it. So let's talk about how we go from trying this. The first time I tried it, I was with some friends that were already smoking, and they didn't want me to tell on them. So they wanted me to try it. That way they had something on me, right? Can you tell how old I was? I wasn't very old. So I tried it, coughed up my left lung, wasn't a good thing. Okay, so I didn't gravitate towards smoking cigarettes because it was a horrible experience. Okay, but a few years later I got friends that are smoking and I'm trying to fit in, and so I'm back to let me try this again. Coughed a little bit, wasn't as bad. Okay, could I smoke today? Yes, I could if I chose to. Why? I got over it. It's no longer a negative experience for me. Okay, and that's when I talk to my cigarette smokers. Some of them had really great first experiences with smoking a cigarette. And, their mom and dad smoke, and so they were just taking one here and taking one there and taking one here and taking one there. But we didn't have that pattern. We didn't really have a habit built in yet. So we have to go from one here and there to building it into our lives. And lots of times we do this by doing something that is pleasurable to us and then adding the cigarette in as a part of it. So here's what we do. I go out. I'm going to be an adult now, like maybe over 21, hanging out with my friends, and we go out after work on Friday and we have a couple of cocktails and somebody says, here, have a cigarette. And I'm having a good time with you as my friend, and I'm having a cigarette, and I'm having a couple of drinks, and this was really fun. And my memory will be that that was all enjoyable, to include the cigarette that was a part of having a good time with my friends and a couple of drinks. And so the next week I come, and I say, hey, can I have a cigarette? And he gives me a cigarette, and I have a couple of more drinks. Okay? So now I'm in the habit of, on the weekends, I go out and I have a couple of drinks and I smoke. Some people start out smoking just like that. I'm still not buying very much though, right? A pack would last me like forever. It wouldn't be good by the time I finished it at 4 cigarettes a week. So I got to get more in here. So I go out to lunch with a friend at work. Okay, and my friend happens to be a smoker. And we're sitting outside on the sidewalk where you can smoke. And after we're done with our lunch, she lights up a cigarette, and I go, oh, that sounds good. And I pull my pack out of my thing, and I light up a cigarette. And now I have just linked smoking the cigarette and the wonderful lunch I had with the company that I was in. And you know what? I go out to a lunch the next day, and I might be by myself, and I say, yeah, I really enjoyed that yesterday. I think I'll have a cigarette. Okay, so now I start having a cigarette with lunch. I go home. I really enjoyed that cigarette at lunch. Maybe it'll feel good after dinner. And so now I'm having a cigarette after lunch, and I'm having a cigarette after dinner. And I'm really enjoying this. Okay, I go out to the coffee break, and I'm talking to some people, and I'm having a hard time at work. And we're out there just kind of, and they're all smoking around the can 300 feet from the door. And so I didn't bring my cigarettes with me because I just was trying to get some fresh air. And somebody says, well, you know, why don't you have a cigarette? It'll probably help you calm down. And they give me a cigarette. You know what? I feel better for that cigarette. I yarned at you for a little bit. I had my cigarette. I felt better. I go back inside. Now what do I remember? Gosh, I go out for my smoke. I go out for my break. I have a cigarette. I feel better. You see how we're linking all this? I have a good experience. It calmed me down. I enjoyed it with. This is how we build pattern into our life. We begin to pick up and we begin to use. Do you hear me actively thinking about this? Have I looked at myself and said, I really want to get up to 20 cigarettes a day? I really, really, really want to smoke a pack. This will be really good for me. No. But in just those 4 little examples, I've got myself up to a half a pack, and I'm not even aware. Not even aware. I'm not going to be aware that I'm taking an extra $7 out of my wallet twice a week now. I'm up to $14 a week. Times 4. $50 a month, and all I'm doing is smoking half a pack a day. So imagine what happens when my life goes south, and I now have this pattern built in, this knowledge that, you know, they make me feel better, and so I get stressed out. I'm having a hard time. I'm thinking about it on my way to work. Now I'm smoking in my car. It's a 40-minute drive. I can get 2 or 3 in before I even get to work in the morning, can't I? And then I have my smoke break, and I can have 1. If it's a bad day, I'll have 2. And then I'm going to have lunch, and I'm going to have 2 at lunch, and I have an afternoon break, and that's 2 more. And I can smoke 3 on my way home. And then I'm going to have dinner, and I can sit out and have a cigarette after dinner. Man, I'm up to a pack a day, no problem. And I haven't really engaged what I'm doing to this. Pack a day, 7 days a week, 365. When we think about that, that really applies to anything we enjoy using, doesn't it? I can do that with alcohol. I can do that with marijuana. I can do that with Percocet. I can do that with Xanax. Any drug that makes us feel good, if we get into the habit of using it at points when we feel good, and using it for when I'm emotionally in pain, we are increasing our risk to use more, to use consistently, to get into the habit, and we're not paying attention. That's how we get into an addiction. Okay? Once we're in the habit, the body's going to try to maintain itself. That's why when you use some of this stuff, you don't get high anymore, or you don't feel it as much. Okay, so you smoke a little pot. Oh, you know what? I got to get some better stuff. I hear there's better stuff out there. I'm going to have to ask Bob, because he smokes better stuff. He would know. We know those people too, right? Okay. You know, beer just is not cutting it for me. But I heard that craft beer has a higher alcohol content. I'm going to try me some of that. Wine has a higher alcohol content. Maybe I'll go to wine. Liquor, everybody knows, has more alcohol in it. Okay, so people, when they're not getting a buzz from beer, instead of drinking more, they drink something that has a higher alcohol content. Why? To get the buzz back. How long does that last? Until the body gets used to it. Then I have to drink more of that too. The body's always trying to maintain steady state. Always trying to maintain steady state. So it's always trying for us not to get high, not to live in that buzz state. Doggone it, when you're doing stuff to be in a buzz state, kind of working against you here. So you're building up volume. That steady state and lack of buzz is called tolerance. We will build tolerance to all drugs that make us high. The body is trying to get to a place where we're in a steady state. So we don't feel the buzz anymore. Does it change what's going on in the body? No. The person that drinks 4 cocktails and gets into their car and drive is still going to blow when they get pulled over above 0.8, and they don't feel it. They're at a 0.12. Gosh darn it, now they just got a DUI. They had 4 cocktails. I wasn't even buzzed. I hear that all the time. I didn't even have a buzz. Well, okay, that just tells me how long you've been drinking and how much, because you had all that in you and you didn't even have a buzz. Me, I wouldn't have hardly been able to stand up. That's what that tells me, right? Yeah. So the body's always looking for a steady state. As we are doing it regularly, we're into the habit of doing it, and now we have this psychological, God, I gotta have a cigarette. I gotta have a beer or a glass of wine with dinner. I'm gonna make it so that I have this. Now we're looking at the characteristics of an addict, because they're really paying attention that they always have it around. They're paying attention that they're going to be able to use. Will they identify that they're an addict? No. No. They're going to minimize. I'm really not using as much. And only when I can get them off or get them to look at maybe what they're spending do they begin to recognize, holy cow, I had no idea. Okay. That's good. You had no idea. Now you do. Okay. They begin to rationalize. Well, if you knew what my life was like, you would know why. I have to have a hit here and there because, God, my life sucks. My life is a mess. I have so much going on. I can't even get to sleep because I can't turn my mind off. That's rationalization. Why is it okay for me to do this? Does it change that I'm in the habit? Does it change that I might be addicted? No. It's just me talking my way, how I'm making it okay. And a lot of us here, because this is an educational program, are going to deny we even have an issue. I'm really okay. If you heard my story, you'd understand why I don't even need to be here. I heard your story. You may not need to be here because you're an addict, because you're not if you're here. You're not an addict. But I do want you to take pause and think about what you're doing and how you're using it. And did you get yourself somewhere you didn't mean to get? How is it a habit? Did you build it in? Okay? If you don't want to do that, if you say, you know what, I really think I'm okay, I don't know, you have your own stories for what happened that day. It would be justification there that I was just going to do. Okay. You know what, I didn't know I was using that much. I really wasn't paying attention to all that I was doing with drinking or all that I was doing with smoking pot. And based upon having to step back and look at my life, I'm going to do some things different. Some of you will say, I'm not going to use anymore. I'm going to just stop. It really isn't worth it. Others will say, I'm going to modify what I've done because I'm going to choose not to stop, but I'm going to make it so I'm aware of what I'm doing so that I don't get into trouble again, so that I don't become addicted to this, because I certainly don't want to do that. Okay, that would be my purpose here. So that's been, this is my section on habits, patterns, and addictions.